I can't know everything. I have to do stuff. I have to eat. I have to sleep. I have to try to figure out my life. I can't know everything. And I don't think anybody should, really, or else you're maybe not living. That's another discussion. But you can't know everything, right? So I haven't seen every movie, and I haven't read every book. I haven't listened to every record. But these lists are what I have seen, the things that I have liked over this past decade. And there have been some great things that have come out of this past decade. So let's get into my top 10 records of the decade. My number 10 is, and I'll be honest, I don't have a lot to talk about when it comes to this record. It's just a really good record. It's Mock and Tooth. I think they're from Australia, I believe. It came out in 2010, and the album's called Tuning Echoes. One of my favorite songs is Farewell to Window. It's just one of my favorite songs. It's really, I don't know, it's kind of like a chill groove, sexy kind of tune. I don't know. I really don't want to overanalyze tracks too much right now, because I could talk about these for hours and hours and hours, but I'm going to try to just kind of give you a brief overview of these. So number 10, I have Mock and Tooth, and they're producers that just kind of make some interesting kind of worldly, fun, funky. I don't know. I really have a hard time grasping it. It's almost like they recorded it on a 4-track at the same time, but I'm not doing a good job of explaining this record. Hopefully my top 10 lists, if you haven't seen or heard any of these things, just prompt you to want to go listen or check some of these things out. So we'll leave number 10. We'll leave Mock and Tooth at number 10 for now. Number 9 is an electronic album. It came out in 2013. This is Disclosure's Settle. This record, when it came out, I think I was really into a lot of, and you'll hear more of this. I was really into like a lot of Mars Volta and stuff, heavier rock. At the time that this came out, and when it came out, I was like, nope, I like this. From was it Sam Smith? There's a bunch of vocalists on here. The vocalist from Friendly Fires does a track on here. All of the songs are super danceable. Just really fun, good time music, and really well produced from two young kids from the UK. They did a really great job, and their follow-up record was really good as well. I would definitely didn't make this list. I think Settle is a superior record to their follow-up, but both great records. So if you haven't listened to Settle by Disclosure, do yourself a favor and go listen to that, because you will have a great time. And you've probably honestly heard some of it. I think there was a bunch of commercials or something that used Sam Smith got pretty popular off his Disclosure single. So much they brought him back for the second record. But yeah, number 9, I have Disclosure's Settle. Number 8 is a more aggressive record. This is from 2010 as well. He's a drummer. His name's Zach Hill, and he's been in a bunch of bands. I think a lot of people maybe know him. Well, a lot of people probably know him best from Death Grips. He's in a band, Death Grips. It's kind of like a noise punk rock hip hop kind of deal. We'll get into them a little bit later. But Zach Hill, number 8, Face Tat is a solo record that he did, and it's just monstrous drumming, and it's one of those records that I go back and listen to when I need a little pump of enthusiasm. Or there's a video for one of the songs. I can't remember the name. Oh man, sorry, I'm terrible with like track names and things like that. So it's not like I'm not a fan. I just can't remember every track names, but particularly when it comes to bands like Mars Volta and some other stuff, or like a lot of like krautrock bands, they'll just make up random names for a song. You're like, that has nothing to do with the song. So I have a hard time remembering all these things. That's why I have a list written down in front of me. That's out of order, by the way. Excuse me. So, Zach Hill is just a powerhouse of a drummer. And, I've liked a lot of the stuff that he's been in. He was in a band called Hella. And he's done work with a bunch of other people, including one of my favorite music producers, Omar Rodriguez Lopez. They did some work together on one of my favorite records from the decade before, which is Krypton Monisha. He played drums on that record, but Zach Hill is. And I'll stop saying it. He's a phenomenal drummer, and you go listen to this record if you need something a little bit manic and a little bit a little injection of aggression, not bad aggression, just like, hey, you need to go run around and jump in a pile of tires. Let's listen to that. So let's see, what do we have? Number 7 is a newer record. This is a psychedelic Turkish funk band called Altın, and this record Go came out in 2018. And I kind of just said it all right there. It's psychedelic funk Turkish folk music. So they make they make psychedelic funk. If you can start there, the music is very rhythmic and pretty easily danceable, I'd say. But they sing it. The band comes with a whole library of Turkish folk songs. So they've turned traditional Turkish folk songs into these kind of more funky, danceable songs. And I'm not even gonna. My pronunciation of things in the English language is difficult enough. I'm not gonna try to butcher other languages, but they have some great tracks. I highly recommend listening to Altın. My 2-year-old nephew also highly recommends listening to Altın. They're great. They're great for kids to dance to as well, I guess. So you see, that was number 7. Let's see, number 6. Here we go. So I was lucky enough to see these guys this last year too. Number 6, we have Polo and Pan. Carnivale came out in 2017. Kind of had a similar effect to me with Disclosure, where kind of out of nowhere, I think I heard some tracks on YouTube, which is sometimes how I find music, is just looking at YouTube videos. I was thrown off when I heard these guys, but I dove in instantly, and they have an incredible amount of melody. Polo and Pan really grew. They take a lot of I guess kind of tropical sounds, and maybe some like French children's tales, and they'll kind of mix those things together. Another really good danceable record. There's some stuff that I think they released that wasn't on the record too, because so far they only have this one record. They've released some other stuff too that's also really good. I recommend just going and watching their YouTube videos. A lot of them are like repurposed old 1950s movie footage. And they do a really good job with it. This record, my buddy Pat and I went to go see them in LA this last year. And that was one of my favorite shows. It was a short. If I remember correctly, it feels like it was one of the shorter concerts I've been to. But it was so much fun, and I'm looking forward to hearing what Poe and Pan want to do in the future, because I don't know, with sometimes with electronic producers, they'll put out a great record, and then for like the next 4 years it's just remixes. And as much as I can get behind a remix, I just don't like remix albums. And so I'm not trying to pressure them into, give me more now. I just am excited to hear what they have in store, and hopefully it's more new material as opposed to remixy kind of things. So that was number 6. Number 5, I have Mars Volta's Noctourniquet. That came out in 2012. Mars Volta might be one of my favorite bands. There's a long history of music projects. Of music projects that Omar Rodriguez Lopez, who plays guitar in the band, has been involved with, at the Drive-In, De Facto, all of his multiple side groups. Bosnian Rainbows is a great band too. Noctourniquet is my second favorite Mars Volta record. I know there's a lot of Mars Volta fans that really got into the band because their first 2 records, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great. My favorite Mars Volta record is their first record, and the EP. I don't know. Those are in there, but Noctourniquet is so far removed from that first record. I like it when bands or artists find their own creative influences and start moving in those directions, as opposed to, I'll just use Metallica as an example. They made good music for what they did at the time, but I also don't really want to hear the same record over and over again. Not to say that they've done that, but bands tend to do that sometimes. They'll find a sound and stick to it, as opposed to experimenting a little bit more. And this record, Noctourniquet, does that for me. There's a lot of, I guess you'd call it, krautrock sounds, like 1970s psychedelic, German psychedelic rock kind of influences. You can hear it in a lot of the song structures. But they do things on this record that they didn't really do on other ones. You can feel, I hate to say experimental, because the band, I feel like, is a lot of experimental, just in general. I feel like that's a lot of the basis to this band. This record just kind of, not only did it do a bunch of weird, unique things in terms of the band itself, it was their last record. As of right now, they've been on. I guess they broke up, and then most of them just are back at the Drive-In. This record also came out at a really weird time for me, and so it helped me get through some of the times in my life that were going on in 2012, which was kind of a 2013, I think, was kind of a rough time period for me. But Noctourniquet definitely helped me out, as a lot of music and other media do for all of us. So anyways, number 5 was Mars Volta's Noctourniquet. Number 4, going back to Zach Hill, we have Death Grips, Ex-Military. Their first record came out in 2011. Death Grips is just such a unique band and such a product of our time. I feel like if you took the broad concept of punk rock, hip hop, glitch, glitch sampling, modern kind of music, and you just threw it all into one hodgepodge amplifier, you'd get Death Grips. And that first record is, there's a little bit more samples on that record than there are on following Death Grips records, but for me, this record, every song on here I'll listen to over and over again. I had to put this one down for a while because I was doing that. And it's been a little bit since I've gone back to it, but I will go back to it is the point. And that's why it's on my top 10 of the decade. Zach Hill on drums just is a beast. That dude, if you've ever watched him drum, it's a sight to behold. And then MC Ride on vocals. His vocals are kind of insane. He raps, but he's not the rapper in the traditional sense of, like, I feel like the dude is trying to tell me story. They're from Sacramento, and I lived in Sacramento for a handful of years. And I feel like the dude's just telling you stories about Sacramento. Like, the way I feel about it is the dude's aggressively telling you stories about Sacramento while trying to drink a Four Loko. And that sounds weird, but it is great. And by no means is that an insult to anybody. I think MC Ride is one of my favorite vocalists out there, and not because of like the lyrics that he writes, but the way that things are, the way he produces himself. I guess there's just a really interesting band. I think they've broken up and then gotten back together. I don't know what the state of Death Grips really is, but whatever it is, I hope they just keep making music, because all of them are super talented. So number 4, that was Death Grips, ex-military. Number 3 is a band from Florida, I think. The Drums, and I don't actually remember if this is their first record, but it's the first record I heard from them, and it's Portamento from 2011. And there's just a lot of good songs on there. They're short and sweet, a little bedroom poppy, a little Joy Division-y. Let's see, Money is a really good one. My friend and I are always singing that song to each other. But I don't have any money. No, I don't have any money. So yeah, there's just that song. That record is one of those kind of jukebox records where every song on there is different, and it's kind of like a love pop song or whatever. But each one of them, it's not I like listening to concept records a lot. Like, that's why I like Mars Volta, and one of the next bands we'll talk about is they make a lot of concept-y records, and you can just kind of flow through the record and listen to it. And that's how I like to enjoy records. And Portamento doesn't necessarily do that. It's song to song to song to song, but each one's great. Again, I'm not looking up track lists. I'm not giving you specific song titles to overanalyze or anything here. My hope is that you guys go and listen to some of these if you haven't. But The Drums, Portamento, fantastic record, and for me, it's number 3 of the decade. So go listen to it. Number 2, and this one was really hard for me because this band kind of came out of nowhere, and I'm a massive, massive fan. I've been able to see them once so far, and I hope to see them so many more times. And that's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I think they're currently my favorite band, and it was really hard to pick a record from them because I like all of their stuff, all of it. I like all of it. It's each record's different. Their last record, Infest the Rat's Nest, is a little bit heavier than some of the other ones, and that's fine. Like, again, I like it when artists, musicians put out music that they're excited about, which if they're going to put out a jazz record, which they've done, and they're excited about it, and it's really good, which it is, I'll listen to it. But if they also want to put out like a thrash metal record and it's really good and they're excited about it, I want to listen to that too. And it was really, really difficult for me to figure out what record of King Gizzard stood out the most. And oh man, King Gizzard alone, I have many honorable mentions. Polygonal Wonderland is one that I'm constantly listening to. Sketches of what is it? Sketches of Brunswick East, I think that's what that's called. With Mild High Club. That one's great. It's kind of the more jazzy one I'm referencing. Man, they just, these guys need to never stop making music, please. King Gizzard is basically like two bands put into one. There's two drummers, there's like four, or there's three, I think three guitar players and a bass player, and then there's Ambrose, who does some vocals, harmonica, and keyboards. And I think I've seen him play guitar once or twice. They're a phenomenal band. But I gotta say, Nonagon Infinity is probably the one of the decade for me from them, because it was one of the first ones that I heard. I think the first song I heard from them was People Vultures. I think I saw, again, YouTube. That's how I find some of my music. It's just watching weird YouTube videos, music videos particularly. And I think People Vultures was the first one that I watched and was just blown away by the like aesthetic and style of playing. And then I listened to the full record, and that record loops into itself. You could start that record, and when it ends, it loops perfectly back into itself, and it's great. Nonagon Infinity opens the door, baby. That's my number 2 of the decade. Really, any King Gizzard, in my opinion, is a great start. My brother has been kind of interested in them, and I know there's some styles of music that'll turn him off, and they do some of that music, but they also do other stuff too. So I think Polygonal Wonderland and Sketches of Brunswick East are the two that I kind of directed him to. For Nonagon Infinity or Infest a Rat's Nest or whatever, a little bit heavier records. So, I mean, if you're gonna get into King Gizzard, I really start anywhere. But if you have specific tastes, check out. If you want something a little bit lighter, check out maybe Paper Mache. Was it Paper Mache Dream Balloon? Is that what it's called? That's a little bit more acousticy record. A little bit. That one to me has a lot of like 60s sounding pop, psychedelic pop sounds on there, which is cool. So yeah, King Gizzard, number 2, Nonagon Infinity. Go check it out if you haven't. And number 1, my number 1 of the decade is one of my other favorite bands, and this was the best album that came out the year it came out. I was doing my old show Dino News, which was mostly movies and TV, and I intended to talk a little bit about music, and I only ever did one music review for Dino News. And that music review is my number 1 pick of the decade, and that's Tame Impala's Currents. That record is nearly flawless as far as I'm concerned. There's one part that irks me about that record, but it's kind of a minor thing, really, when you look at it. It's just me having my own acquired tastes and things that I like and don't like. Something they did on the record that I don't like, but it's not a huge thing. It's only, and well, okay, I'll get into it. So one of the tracks, again, don't remember the track name. One of the tracks has a guy talking. He's just, so today I went to the liquor store and I bought some food, and whatever the hell he's saying. He's just kind of telling me about his life, and I hate that. I hate it. I'm sure there's a story behind it. I'm sure there's context, but I really hated that one part. And the song's fantastic, but the vocal part just really annoys me. But that's just me. But that being said, Currents is still my favorite record of the decade. It's that one surprised me. I've liked Tame Impala for a while, and Kevin Parker tends to put out, or had up until that point put out things that sounded more psychedelic rock, which they still do. He still has an aesthetic to his sound. You know, he's worked it out well for himself, but this one just kind of surprised me because it was, I think, after working with Mark Ronson for a while, he picked up just a little bit more pop to it, and oh man, that from song 1 to the last song, you can pretty much immerse yourself into the world that Kevin Parker has presented to us. Let It Happen was one of my first, I think it was the first single released from Tame Impala. I can't remember how the order happened, but yeah, like the vocoded vocals over the guitar riffs and keyboards. I'm just stammering here because I'm still trying to vocalize like how awesome that record was when it came out. And I remember thinking, wow, I could tell people about how good this record is, and I think they would believe me. Not to say people don't believe me, but I have weird taste in things, and it's not for everybody. But for the first time, I felt like, wow, I think everybody's going to like this record. I think everybody's going to like this record. And I mean, that record is so good that I think it might hurt the fact that people are waiting for the next Tame Impala record so much. I'm worried that there's just a little bit of overhype for the next record. There's a couple of singles out that are pretty good so far, but you know, for me, the whole album in context is really what matters, and that's what I want to hear, is the whole thing. The Less I Know the Better from Changes is a pop hit. I don't know what to say about this thing. It feels nostalgic. It feels poppy. It feels modern. I don't know how all these things happen at the same time. But Kevin Parker nailed it. Even the album cover is fantastic. And I'm blowing this. I can't remember the artist's name. I do. Robert Beatty, who did the cover. I since have followed him on Instagram, and he makes fantastic art. So sometimes a great album can lead to maybe not just the record, but learning about a new artist or some other art involved with the record. And I'm a big fan of Robert Beatty now. I think that's how you say it. Beatty. I think it's Beatty. Anyways, so number 1, Tame Impala, Currents. I'm babbling about it, not really getting cohesive points across. This is a great record. The song I'm talking about I think it's Past Lives. It's either Past Lives or Disciples. I think it's Disciples. I'm not going to listen to it right now. I'm not going to do that on the air. I'm not going to waste your time, guys. But go listen to it. My top 10 records of the decade. Let's go back over these one last time. Number 10, Mock and Tooth, Tuning Echoes, came out in 2010. Number 9, Disclosure, Settle, from 2013. Number 8, Zach Hill, Face Tat, 2010. Number 7, Alton Goon, Go, from 2018. Number 6, Polo and Pan, Carnivale, from 2017. Number 5, Mars Volta's Nocturnicate, from 2012. Number 4, Death Grips, Ex-Military, from 2011. Number 3, The Drums, Portamento, from 2011. Number 2, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards, Nonagon Infinity, from 2016, and number 1, Tame Impala, Currents. Guys, I want to know what you guys think. What do you think about my lists? This isn't an look, let's keep it civilized, yo. There's no need to argue. There's no need to tell me I'm wrong or stupid. I don't think you're wrong or stupid for having your opinions. But let me know what you think about this content in general. I don't really care about the placing of the numbers, but if you like any of the content, if you haven't heard any of the content, let me know. If you haven't heard some of it, and then after this you go and listen to something or you see something and you like it or you don't like it, let me know. I want to know what you guys think about all this stuff.